Hey everyone, and welcome back to our homeroom, and welcome to November, which means it is almost the end of 2025. I cannot believe it, but this year has been really crazy for a lot of us, so I'm actually really looking forward to cuddling up with family and my cat and kind of doing nothing for these last few weeks of the year. So, as I thought about that going into this podcast, I was thinking how important it may be for me to talk about power struggles. Power struggles are so common. Everybody I have known has dealt with them at some point or another, whether their child was a toddler or a teenager. It kind of spans all the ages, right? We deal with them too, actually, in our everyday life, especially at the workplace. That can happen a lot. So I thought it might be important to kind of go over power struggles because they are very common, but they're actually very mild misbehaviors. They aren't really far on the disconnection scale. When we think of misbehavior, remember it's usually on a scale of whether your children are getting their needs met or not through that relationship with you. So power struggles are actually pretty mild, which means they are very easy to solve. And, I had a son who was super strong willed when he was a child. So I had to learn very quickly how to manage power struggles. And once I learned some really easy strategies actually to implement, they felt good. And then my son and I were able to be so much closer. It brought our relationship closer together, that it was totally worth it. It was amazing to me how just a few simple changes from me totally eliminated power struggles, like for good. And we still have a good relationship today, even at age 17. Power struggles will pop up little bits every now and then, but now I know how to deal with them. And I don't know, it's game changing. So hopefully today, if you have a child who displays power struggles, no matter what age they are, I'm going to talk to you about what power struggles look like, what they feel like, why our children display this kind of misbehavior, and then I've got some really pretty practical, easy strategies for you to try. And then once you do that, I promise you they can be gone for good and you won't have to deal with those anymore at all, which means at this time of year, holidays can be much more fun and enjoyable. So if you haven't tuned in before, down below, I always have a link for my website, which has free downloadable worksheets. So if you are listening on Apple, then it may be helpful to print out a worksheet later so you can have that for reference. If you're not watching on YouTube, though, I do have worksheets up on the screen, so that way you can follow along visually if that helps. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and dive into solving power struggles. Power struggles are actually pretty easy to solve as long as you are open and willing to pull back a little bit. So, anytime we see our children fighting for power, that's literally what they want. They want some power. So, what does power seeking behavior look like? It's not just all fighting, right? There's a whole bunch of different varieties of power seeking behavior. So, there are active power struggles and then passive power struggles. So, if your child is displaying active power seeking, it's going to look like fighting, like actual fighting, physical fighting, yelling, fighting back. It could look like rebellion. It could look like pushback, just wanted to argue you about everything and not saying no or, pushing back on whatever it is you're asking them to do. And which is also kind of a form of active defiance, literally saying no, refusing to do what you're asking. And it's very obvious they are saying no and fighting back. So active power seeking is pretty out there. It's pretty obvious. It's easy to see. Passive power struggles, however, might not look like power struggles. So one version of passive power is stubbornness. So just kids that are just digging in their heels. They're just kind of not really doing anything that you're asking them to do. So they're being a little stubborn. Refusing to take your suggestions. If you've got an older child, I've noticed this a lot with students in middle school or high school, that when you give them suggestions as a parent, they just don't want to do anything you suggest, no matter even if it's good or not, or even if it's something they would normally like. They just don't want to do what you're telling them to do. Sometimes passive power can show up as low grades. So if your child is really resisting you telling them what to do or you giving them any kind of direction with schooling, they can dig in and their grades can suffer because of that. So sometimes low grades can be what passive power struggles can look like. And then just passive defiance, just not saying no out loud, but just their actions are showing you that they're not doing what you ask them to do. So you can see both active or passive power. However, both of those versions are going to make you feel the same way. So when children power seek, you are going to feel challenged by that behavior. You might feel angry, especially if it's fighting. You might feel defeated, like they're just fighting, 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 and you just want to give up. Or you want to fight back. And then you can also want to maybe take control or boss even more because you're thinking, who do they think they are, right? I'm in charge here. And if they keep pushing and they keep pushing, sometimes we want to give up, we want to give in, we don't know what else to do, and that doesn't work either, right? We don't want to give them all the power, but we also can't have all the power because if we're fighting for power and they're fighting for power, it's like a tug of war, and nobody wins. It just keeps going back and forth and back and forth. So in order to solve that back and forth, in order to stop that, we don't want to give them the power and we don't want to take the power. But first, if we can understand why they're power seeking, then it makes the solutions so much easier. So why do children power seek? Remember our needs. And if you haven't listened to some of my past podcasts, go back to some of my first, I think it's number 4, where I talk about misbehavior and I talk about missing needs and where all that comes from. So we all have human needs, and if our needs are met, we feel good, and if we feel good, we have good behavior. We make good choices. If our needs are not met, we don't feel good, and we can make unhealthy choices or have negative behavior. In children, we call that misbehavior. But needs drive feelings, which drives behavior always. So the only reason you are ever seeing any kind of misbehavior literally just goes back to an unmet need. So we're going to talk about that. And then what does power-seeking children need? Obviously, it's power. They need power. They need control. They need some autonomy or independence. So those are the missing needs. So because those children have an unmet need of power, autonomy, control, the feeling of feeling capable, then they're going to fight for it. So power-seeking behavior is a natural, not healthy maybe, but is a natural reaction to feeling micromanaged, feeling bossed, feeling controlled, feeling incapable, especially for a while, or feeling powerless. We all have a need for that autonomy. We all have a need for independence and power. And so when we are not getting that, we are going to fight for it. And that need for power is so integral that we don't care what the results of the power struggle are. We don't care. And that might be low grades. It might be fighting. It doesn't matter because that need for feeling capable, feeling powerful, feeling in control of our lives is more important than the result of all of those things that we are fighting. They want to be able to do things independently to show themselves and to show you that they are capable. So that's actually even more underlying that reason for autonomy and independence is that if I can do it on my own, I'm really good. I'm capable. I can do things. I can take care of myself. And we all have a need for that, but our children especially, and our toddlers, they're looking for that autonomy for sure. But even as our children grow, they are constantly looking for more and more things to be capable of. So if we're never giving them that opportunity to feel capable, if we're not giving them that independence to try things and succeed at things, then they're craving that feeling of feeling capable. They're not getting that need met. So it's super important that we allow them space and autonomy in a way so that they can show that they are capable. It makes them feel good. And then it also makes, you see that they are capable, which then starts an even better cycle of like, now they're feeling capable, you're seeing them as capable, now they're becoming more capable, taking on more roles, you're expecting more from them, they're rising to that challenge rate, so it becomes a really nice cycle. So you want to give them that space. It builds them their self-esteem, it builds confidence in them. What I have found is power-seeking children are usually pretty strong-willed children. Like they want that control. They want that autonomy. Some kids aren't as power-seeking as others. Some kids aren't as craving that capability and that autonomy as other kids. But those kids who are fighting you, those kids that you're seeing those power struggles, they want to do things themselves. So let them, right? You're lucky to have a child who wants that independence and wants to do things themselves. So you want to promote that as much as you can. But how? How do you promote independence, give power, give autonomy, give independence without letting go of control completely, right? They are still children. So there are some boundaries there with, how to manage offering that independence in a way that is makes you feel okay, but allows them still that time to thrive. So let's discuss how can you give more autonomy without giving up control completely. So in order for our power seekers to get more control, that means you've got to let go of some control. Not all control, obviously, but you do want to back off a little bit and kind of move yourself into the navigator role in their life and not the driver. And then as you are imagining yourself as the navigator in their life, you are not going to grab that steering wheel, right? I've used this just in my last month in that podcast too, where I talk about parents trying to take the wheel of their child's education. And that can result in power struggles. That's one of the things, right? You can try to grab that steering wheel and your child may fight back by saying, no, take your hands off. Or they may just passively dig in their heels and kind of start elbowing you and holding that steering wheel stronger and, pushing it how they want to push it and, kind of ignoring your hand there. But either way, if you try to take over that steering wheel too much in their life, they are going to fight back. So, what can you do in a way that you are comfortable being on the side? So, the first thing, how do you step aside? A lot of these tips I'm going to give are regarding education because that's where I see a lot of this panning out with our older children. But even with your younger children, you can still see yourself as that navigator in their life. You're there to guide them, there to help them, you're giving them what they need, you're providing choices for them, you're telling them, hey, here's some things coming up, just so you know, you may want to look out for that. But letting them make those choices, letting them make those mistakes, those failures, as long as it's not life threatening, right? It's not, as long as it's not, hey, there's a cliff coming up. Absolutely, we're not going to go that direction, right? So there are some things obviously you have to take the control of, but anything that is minor, you're going to try to let go of. So you want to change your mindset. You're on the same team as them. You're supporting them as they travel their educational path or they travel any kind of, road ahead. And then, yes, even in kindergarten, you can adopt a guide on the side mentality. And I'll go into that a little bit more here in a second. If you are seeing pushback with your child regarding school, you want to stop monitoring that schoolwork as often as you are now. So if you're monitoring it every day and you are harping them on their grades every day, then you need to pull back to maybe once a week. If you're doing it once a week and you're still getting power struggles, pull back to every 2 weeks. Find a way to pull back and kind of start letting go of that control. And I said this again last month too. Remember when we were children, our parents only saw our progress reports every 6 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. So it's okay to pull back, let go of that control when it comes to micromanaging their schoolwork, and you'll just see less power struggles. Stop assuming that you know more about their schooling than they do. We do not. We are not going into school every day with them. So there is no way for us to know what is best for them 100%, right? They still know a lot more about schooling than you do. When we assume we know more than them about their schooling, it can infer to them that they are incapable or they don't know things going on in their own life. And you just don't want to push them off to the side like that. You want them to feel like they know what's going on in the classroom more than you do. You want to kind of give them that that esteem, right? So then you can ask things like, oh, what are you doing? How does that feel? Wow, that's amazing. I never knew that. Or how are you handling that? What do you think is the best way to go about that? Step off to the side. Act like you don't know. I know you've been through school, but whew, that was probably a long time ago. And things are so much different now. So try to trust your child, step aside, and don't act as though you know more than they do. Another way to step aside healthfully is to stop preventing consequences, stop preventing mistakes, failure, and bad choices. Again, if it's not life threatening, let them experience that. It is very hard, and I realize that, but the long-term effect is so much more important. So if you can let them experience a consequence that is not going to hurt them, it is not going to have some major negative effect on their future or life, let them feel that. Let them get the bad grades. Let them try something that you think isn't a good way to handle it, get the bad grade, and then say, well, maybe try something different next time. Maybe that didn't work. I remember thinking even in my teen years that I wish my mom would let me make the bad choice and learn from the bad choice. Like I even wanted to make bad choices and learn from the bad choices rather than her constantly telling me what she thought I should be doing. So if you are seeing that power seeking behavior, it is okay to back off, trust that it'll work out. And I'll give you a few more strategies on how to be on the side correctly. So the first thing in that navigator position, you're going to want to give choices and ask questions. So with our younger children, you're going to give a lot of limited choices. Like, do you want to do this or that? So again, like I mentioned in kindergarten, when it comes to their schooling, step off to the side, give them control and choice over when they do their homework and where they do their homework. That's a really simple one. And it's okay if they choose the wrong thing. Let's say they choose to do it in the living room and you're like, well, that's really distracting. They're going to end up being, watching what we're doing or whatever. That's okay. Let them try it. When they see that it didn't work, you can say, I don't know, it doesn't seem like you're getting your homework done like you thought you could sitting out in the living room. Maybe there's a better place. So again, lots of choices, asking lots of questions. With our older children, it cannot be open-ended questions, right? So you can go from being a telling parent, I need you to do your homework, it's time to do your homework, it's time to go to bed, you need to clean your room, right? Into an asking parent, not an interrogating parent, but an asking parent. What's your plan for doing your homework? You have a vibe of curiosity more than a vibe of judgment or, interrogation. So, what's your plan for doing your homework? Or what time works for you? What time did you decide that bedtime is a good time for you to go to bed? Or, what is it you need to bring to school tomorrow? Anytime you can take a telling statement and turning into an asking question, it will give your child control and choice. Also, what is so great about using questioning is it infers that you know they have the answer. So that gives them a sense of capability. Oh, wow, mom thinks I'm capable enough to choose my homework space. Mom thinks I'm capable enough to choose my bedtime. Mom thinks I'm capable enough to know what my plan is for homework tonight. So as much as you can ask questions and give choices, it makes them feel capable while also giving them that power and control that they are seeking. So that is my favorite of all strategies for power struggles, is just flipping your script from a telling parent into an asking parent, being curious and having lots of questions for them. Another really great strategy to deal with children who are power seeking and they're looking for that, remember, they're looking for that sense of capability. You may have to have a conversation with them. So this is my other favorite strategy. It works for almost every misbehavior, is having a vulnerable, heart-to-heart, authentic conversation where you say, we're fighting a lot about school and I hate it. It's ruining our relationship, and our relationship is so much more important than whatever it is we're fighting about. So let's talk it through. It seems to me that you need more control or power or independence or autonomy, whatever it is. How can we work together? What are some things that we can do so that, I don't take my hands off completely. I'm still there to help you, but you have a little more power and control. So whatever area you are seeing all the power struggles, just talk to your child. I don't want to fight about this anymore. What can we do? What do you need from me? What independence or control do you need here? And when you get their answer, try it. Try their suggestion, even if it's not great. What builds true confidence is trying things that don't work and then fixing it, coming up with a different solution and trying it again, trying something again. It makes them feel like, oh, wow, I can problem solve in my own life, right? We want our children to have that confidence. So then you're going to set up those goals together, set up the supportive routines together. Okay, so let's say you talk to your child and they've decided they want control of homework. They don't want you bothering them about homework. They don't want you looking at their grades and asking them about school every day. And you're like, okay, I'm going to back off a little bit with school. What happens if your grades go down? Like what's a negative consequence that could come from me taking my hands off and me not telling you anymore? How can we help that not happen? And then you're going to go over those together and then come up with consequences. Like, okay, well, what happens if you don't ever do your homework at all? What do we do? Do I step back in with monitoring grades? Do I step in with giving you reminders? What do we do when you don't do those things that you say you're going to do? But if you work together, it makes them feel that you think they're capable. It's giving them choice. It is so powerful. So I cannot stress enough the importance of giving choices, asking questions, and having conversations. As long as you can pull back and give your child some power and control in their life, I promise you those power struggles will go away for good. And that is better for everyone, right? It makes it so much easier for everyone involved. So what I have noticed is in order for parents to step aside and give some control, we often have to work on our own control issues because we have a lot of them in order to be able to give that up to our children. So homework today, let's think about these two questions. One, how might your own need for control or perfection be taking away from their need for autonomy? So you may be like, but my child needs to get all A's in school. You may really want that, but if that is something that you and your children are fighting about, all A's in school is not as important as the relationship with your child. So, yes, all A's sounds great. And that side of us that craves that perfection and really likes to see that high GPA, yes, that's great. But it is not more important than that relationship with your kids. If you are fighting about it, if you're not fighting about it, great, keep going. But if you are fighting about that, you're going to have to try to find a way to let go of those perfect grades because it is so much more important than you are on the side. You are cheering them on and then letting them take that control. The earlier you can do this, the better. It's really hard to let go in high school because those grades sometimes can be for college level classes and things like that. So the best you can do, what you might have to work on your own control or perfection issues so that you're not taking away their autonomy because that's super, super important. Number two, then what might you need to work on in yourself? Your children are not there to meet your needs of perfection, to maybe meet your needs of getting into a good college, to meet your needs of looking good with everyone else in the family or the neighborhood, right? Your children are not there for that reason. Again, they are there to grow, and their independence and their autonomy is so much more important than everything being perfectly lined up. So you may have to really dig in a little bit and see if you have some of your own needs that are not being met. And if there's another place you can try to get that need met for control or for perfection in another area that is not in your child's life or their schooling, especially. So see if you can pivot that need somewhere else. Do what you can to pull back. If pulling back really freaks you out, just investigate a little bit about what is it about inside you that you feel like you need that control. If you don't have it, what are you scared will happen? So take some time to investigate that. Promoting independence for your child's future is so much more important than seeing all those perfect results right now. So try to keep that big picture in mind and then, do what you can to work through those control issues that so many of us have. And if you can do that, I promise you the results are so great. And you'll really be able to then enjoy your relationship with your child and just makes it all the better. So hopefully that helps today with any child that you're dealing with power struggles. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more free content, please make sure you're following or subscribing on Apple and YouTube and TikTok. And if you want help, I am here. So if you're seeing power struggles and the advice today was great and you've tried it and it still doesn't work, please reach out. I really work with everyone on budget and scheduling. I can do virtual, I can do in person in the Orlando area. So I'm pretty flexible. I want to be there for you to help make your relationship with your children the best it can be because we only have a few short years with them. Let's not fight over stuff that can be solved really easily by just pulling back just a little bit, giving them some more autonomy so that they can thrive, and then you will have a really great relationship. And it also helps in the long term, right? Then you have a relationship that lasts well past age 18. All right, well, enjoy the rest of your November. I will be back in December. So I will see you in a month. Bye bye.